Hey everybody, welcome to episode number 28 of Cameron's Nostalgia Podcast. I'm your host, Cameron Strickland, and today I have with me Andy Hayward.
Hi, good to be here.
Nice. Now, for any of you guys who don't know, Andy Hayward was a puppeteer and voice actor for Pix the Bang on the Money Mammals.
Wow, I'm impressed that you remember that. That was such a long time ago. That's amazing.
And he also worked on some of the Sesame Street products. Super Symbol, Waffle Samochi, and many more.
Yeah, lots of fun projects there in the past.
Okay, so let's start with our first question.
Okay.
How did you get interested in puppetry?
It goes all the way back to my childhood, honestly. When I was a kid, I was lucky because there were a lot of really great puppet shows on television at that time. So in addition to like Sesame Street and the Muppets, I also had Pee-wee's Playhouse, which I loved, and then Sherry Lewis Lamb Chops Play Along, the Puzzle Place, just you name it. It was like a golden era for puppets. And so that's kind of what sparked my interest. So even as a very young kid, I would watch these shows with all these different types of puppetry, and I would sit at home and try to make my own puppets, sometimes trying to make versions of what I saw on the show. Um, so being able to like make something and bring it to life and do the voice, all of that from a young age was really, really interesting for me. And that led me to the library where I discovered this little mound of puppet books that I would take out over and over again. And lots of great tips and tricks and patterns. And so that kind of jump started my interest back then.
Nice. So, what was your first puppetry gig?
My first like real professional job where someone paid me, that would have been, I believe, the Money Mammals. Well, I before that I had done theater with puppets in different capacities, but when I moved to LA, the first like proper television puppet series was the Money Mammals, and that was actually just a one-off, but that came out on DVD, and I was thrilled. Like I couldn't believe my luck. So yeah, that was kind of the first one, and at the same time, I was working at Disney in the theme parks.
Do you still have him?
You know what? I don't. Those puppets all belonged to the producer named John Lanza. He's still active, promoting like uh, financial literacy for kids via his Instagram. I think he's on Facebook. But all those puppets, if they still exist, they're quite old now. They stayed with him, so I think he's got those.
All right. What about Igby's Day Off?
That was another fun one. That came out, and that was another, it was a pilot for a series that never got picked up. But I shot that around the same time in Los Angeles, and James Voital, who is a well regarded, masterful puppet maker, designed those puppets. There were two, it was a snail and a roach. So I shot that with another puppeteer named Rob Saunders, who was, oh, sorry about that, very active puppeteer in LA. And we had a blast. We shot that probably over a week, and most of that was on location. So we were, crammed on the floors of sets. We were, on little rolly stools. Nothing was built up high proper, but it was a great challenge. A lot of fun.
Do you still have him?
No, I don't. Again, I think that those puppets just stayed with whoever purchase them for the production. And again, at this point, because reticulated foam, after a decade ish, depending on how they're stored, how they're used, that foam often just turns to dust and crumbles. So if those puppets are out there, they're probably a little crumbly and toasty, but they can always be fixed up, I'm sure.
All right. You have worked on Learning Along with Sesame.
Hmm. Yeah, I did. Off and on for about 2 to 3 years. I did work with Sesame Street just when they needed someone. Uh, I had done a big Muppet workshop, and I think it was the last one of its kind. They've kind of changed how they do things now. But when I went, it was a week long in New York, and then there was a group. It felt like 100 people. It was probably close to like 50 or 60, but there were a lot of people. And so after a couple days, they just started whittling people down and cutting them basically. So at the end of the day, they would stand up, read out a list of names of who they wanted back, and then everyone else, it was just bye-bye. So I was very lucky enough to make it all the way through to the last day when there was just a group of probably 5 or 6 of us left. And Jane Henson came in that day. We got to meet her. It was amazing. And then after that point, they started calling me to come in and do little things. So I did a couple of Macy's parades. I did some of their outreach projects, and I did a Christmas special, just little things here and there over the course of, about 3 years, I think.
And what about kids' favorite country songs?
Yeah, I may have done a Macy's parade before that, but I think that was the first proper production I did with them, which at the time they were still producing DVDs. So that was just a direct to DVD special that we did. But it was amazing. I think it was the first Muppet I ever got to be. It was this little tiny pink anything Muppet dressed up like a cowboy. And so there was this little trio of anything Muppet Cowboys. I was one of them. And they would just kind of pop in and out and sing. And it was amazing because I was just, usually when you're new, you don't get to do something that active or major. But for me, I was getting to do quite a lot. And I was in our little cowboy group was Stephanie DeBruzzo and Tyler Bunch, I believe. And so that was just amazing to be working, paired up with them. And I think we shot that pretty quickly. I want to say it was maybe 3 or 4 days. Yeah, and it was quite something to do. I really had a blast on that one. And even when I wasn't on camera, I would just be on the set, stuck to it like glue, just watching how everybody worked, how they prepared. And with Sesame Street, in my experience, there was never a lot of time. So you wouldn't get much rehearsal. You just had to be prepared and basically ready to go right away. But that was quite a fun experience for me.
Okay. So, what about Elmo's Christmas Countdown?
Yeah, that was a lot of fun, and that one had a much bigger group of puppeteers because they needed to have, in some numbers, big crowds. Sometimes all the major characters were seen together on screen, so a lot of us were doubling and filling in for other people. So there's a big finale, and in that section, I was Baby Bear, which was really really cool to do. Because David Rudman was doing Cookie Monster at that time. And then I was a penguin on a sleigh with Brad Paisley, the country singer. And it was this penguin that Carol Spinney used to use with Big Bird. I think he was named Shivers. He has like a blue beak. So it was very cool that I got to use that puppet for that. And then, yeah, I was, just a bunch of anything Muppets. I was a Grouch for a little bit. Basically whatever they needed to fill the scene out. But it was a lot of fun. That was cool because I hadn't worked with a lot of celebrities before. So on that one, Brad Paisley, we had uh, Jennifer Hudson. We did a number with a bunch of woodland animals. I was a little squirrel, kind of beside her. Um, yeah, just a whole bunch of Kevin James. He was from a sitcom called King of Queens. Just a lot of really terrific people, and everybody was prepared. Everybody was having a really nice time. So that was fun. And a fun trivia fact is that the snow that you see in many of the sequences was soap. It was actually like little soap bubbles. So as the day progressed, everything started getting really slippery. So on the floor, you had to walk very carefully. Otherwise, you would just slip on the soapy floor and take a spill. But that was fun. And as you can tell from, I'm a big Christmas guy. So anytime I get to be part of a Christmas special, it's really fun for me.
Nice. You have worked on Nicest School as Warren.
Oh yeah, yeah. I forgot about that. That was it's a puppet I made, and it was a short film. And that one, I think that was just like one day of work. But it was this grown up man who had this puppet from childhood that he kept. And when he was alone, they would have conversations and the puppet would kind of give him advice. I think it played at a handful of like film festivals at the time. And I haven't seen it since then, but I'm hoping maybe it'll pop up on YouTube or something one day.
Okay. Are we going to rehearse a scene?
Oh, sorry, could you repeat that? It kind of cut out on me there.
Are we going to do a rehearsal for a scene?
Oh, rehearsing for scenes?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the world of TV, I find when I do puppets for theater, there's a lot more time allotted to rehearse. You really get to practice before that audio or audience rather shows up. But for television and films, it moves so quickly that usually it's on you to have that work prepared the night before, um, because there isn't always a lot of time. So, for instance, like the Fraggle Rock the reboot, you'll go in and it's up to you. You should have your lines down. You should kind of know the scene, and they'll do a blocking rehearsal, and that's basically where relatively soon, once things are lit and set, you're just off to the races and you're filming. So there is a bit of blocking rehearsal, but in terms of your performance and what you're going to bring, it's something that you have to do beforehand usually.
You have worked on a film called Into the Wild.
So that's on my IMDb. I did not work on that. I don't know who put it there, and I should probably try to get that removed. So, but that's not something that I did. Sometimes with IMDb, I find people will tag you or add you or something, and it's not always accurate. So yeah, that one unfortunately I didn't have anything to do with.
You have worked on Head of a Household.
I did. That was another earlier on in my career. That was another short film, and that one was done with miniatures. So they were little miniature rod puppets, and it was kind of a spoof on old sitcoms. So if you think back to like the black and white era, like Dick Van Dyke Show or the Donna Reed, these very early, or I Love Lucy, it was kind of a parody of that, and so that played I think that played the film festival circuit as well for a while, and then it just kind of disappeared. It's another thing that I hope maybe someday I'll get to see again.
Okay. You have worked on Louie.
On sorry, which show?
Louie.
Oh, that if that's on my IMDb, that's another one that I did not work on, unfortunately. I need to talk to someone about getting those removed. Not sure why that happens, but yeah, that one also wasn't me, unfortunately.
You have worked on Transylvania Television.
Yes, that is actually one of my favorite things. Um, I grew up in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, and then in a smaller town nearby. And I met a wonderful puppeteer named Gordon Smooter, who also, he's still in Minneapolis. And he's also a wonderful puppet maker and a wonderful prop builder. So he put all of those skills together and created this wonderful late night puppet show. It kind of reminded me of a show called Tales from the Crypt on HBO, like a very late night monster feel. Um, this his show, Transylvanian Television, was more of a comedy. Uh, so he built and designed all these puppets, and then when I was still in Minneapolis, I shot a little bit with him on that, and then I made some of the side characters that you'll see in the show for him. And then after I left Minnesota, they continued filming that, and he made, I want to say, a couple of seasons. There might have been like a short film too. Um, but Gordon is an amazing, talented person, and so if you ever have a chance to talk to him, he's a good one to talk to. But yeah, I had a lot of fun doing that.
And you've worked on the Super Symbol show.
Yeah, that's something that's kind of ongoing now. But there's a company there. They were created for YouTube, and they became the first one of the first YouTube companies for preschoolers to just explode. So I think they're somewhere in the 40 million subscriber range right now. Um, and so I early on I did puppetry work for them. I was a voice on a number of their animated series. One was called The Bumble Numbs. One was called Carl's Car Wash, and so those are all. They were really fun to do, and I'm still working with them. I actually just, well, not just, about a year ago, built with a puppeteer named Trish Leeper. We built a whole cast of puppets for a new series that can't talk about yet, but hopefully in the next year or two, it's going to come out. So I do that, and I've started doing some directing with them too. So I got to direct some music videos, which was a blast. So they're a lot of fun. Anyone who has very young kids, Super Simple is a safe and fun place for them to just enjoy music and animation and puppetry. And they're on YouTube, they're on Amazon Prime, and they have their own app now too. So you can always get the app and then watch all the content right there.
Yes, my previous guest, Pat Fry, used to be Santa Claus.
Oh, wonderful! Like a actual Santa, like in on television, or was it a puppet?
It's just an animation.
Oh, animation, wonderful. Yeah, I that's always fun. Holiday things with Santa and Christmas, and it's just one of my favorite things to do too.
And he was the voice of Caillou's dad from Caillou.
Oh, incredible! Oh, that's fantastic. So he had quite a career as a voiceover actor. It sounds like.
You've worked on Pit Stop.
Yeah, Pit Stop was one of the animated series that Super Simple created. That one only played for one season, uh, but it was still a lot of fun. There were four different racers, and I got to be the voice of all four of them, which is always fun to be doing scenes with yourself. It was a lot of fun. It was kind of an educational based show for very little kids, but it's still out there if anyone wants to check it. It's very goofy and very fun.
And you have that character, Milo.
Yes, Milo. I have a handful of favorite characters I've done. Milo is one of my favorites. He's this big, very large, actually, fluffy purple monster. Trish Leeper made him. He was designed by a friend of mine named Catherine Durst, who also is a children's book illustrator. Wonderful talent. And Milo is a big purple monster. He's got this striped shirt, and then he's got these two teeth. And in my imagination, I always think that those are his first two grown-up teeth coming in. Uh, and so he kind of talks like this, and he's like, "Hi, I'm Milo." So we did a series with him called Milo's Monster School Vlog. So it was as if he was in his own bedroom and with his own little camera set up. And then he would do different experiments on the episodes. But he's just lovable, sweet monster with a big imagination who tries really hard, doesn't always succeed, and he's often alone, but he's never lonely because of his imagination. So he's still one of my favorite characters.
Do you still have him?
I don't, but he is at the Super Simple. We have a full puppet workshop where all the puppets are kept and where we make new things. So he's still there. He's all in one piece and safe. So yeah.
And you have worked on Shitty Wizard.
That was a podcast I went on. So that was a one-off. Uh, it was, if I remember correctly, a podcast where you would come on and do a would you rather scenario, like would you rather be too hot or would you rather be too cold? Like, but more, goofier scenarios than that. And then we would just debate which one and decide which was the best and which is the worst. So I think each episode was about an hour, but I was just on one of those. But it was fun.
And you worked on saying one with Toby.
Yeah, yep. That is from Super Simple Songs too. That's from a handful of years ago. Toby is a yellow puppet he kind of looks like his head is an onion. Very, very cute and very odd. That Trish Leeper played. And then I came on a little bit. I think I was an assist, and I might have done like a one-off anything puppet for that once or twice. But yeah, that was another really fun experience.
And you got to be Zane and Xavier Ward.
Oh, you know what? I think that's another mistake on IMDb. I got to get rid of that one too. But yeah, I don't think that was me.
And you got to work on Monica's Mixing Bowl.
I did. That was a blast. We shot a handful of mini episodes for the web. It was created by a very talented person named Stacy Weingarten, who also is a puppet maker and puppet wrangler. She worked on the Electric Mayhem show on Disney Plus as a wrangler and a number of other things. But she created this series, and I was one of 3 puppet characters on it. And it starred John Tartaglia from Fraggle Rock and from Avenue Q, and he was there as a human actor. And that's the first time I ever got to meet him. It was a really fun show. You can still find that. It should be on YouTube, probably clips on Instagram or something. But it had really terrific music from a lot of Broadway songwriters. And I got to meet Johnny for the first time. And he's one of those special people who's talented in a million different ways and equally as good and has abounding energy. So that was a lot of fun and a great way to meet Johnny for the first time.
And you worked on Finny the Shark.
I did. That was an animated series about. It was kind of Finny the Shark is basically a version of Baby Shark. If you know the Baby Shark, do 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 do. So she was the star, and then she had a bunch of aquatic underwater friends. And there was a little orange seahorse named Sammy who was very intense, very hyperactive, and I got to be the voice of him, which was a lot of fun going into the booth and doing that. And that one was a little exhausting for me just because he talked so fast and had so much energy that by the time I was, done working on an episode, I had to sit down. Like I was I was a little tired. But that's a fun show, and that's out there on a lot of different platforms, so it's easy to find.
And you got to work on Caddy's Classroom.
Katie's class, yep, Katie. Yep, she is a wonderful, talented musician and actor. She does live concerts. She has a couple of her own educational series, and that was another one I got to go in and I assist. I think Toby was on that, the Onion Head Boy puppet. So I think I helped out with that, for a couple days here and there. I'm always happy to help out when I can.
And you got to work on Waffle Samochi.
Yes, that was amazing. I did 2 seasons of that. The first one was a bit different than the second season, but the first one we did a lot of location shooting. So we would take, and primarily I was a wrangler on that, and sometimes I'd jump in to double or assist. Waffles at that time was played by a puppeteer named Michelle Zamora. And Mochi, which was this little mochi ball on a stick at that time, was played by Russ Walco. They're both terrific. And we had to take the puppets out into the real world, sometimes to restaurants. And the concept of the show was that the director and the creator, wanted Waffles to eat real food. So it was quite a chore to try to keep her clean. We had a few different heads, so we could swap a head out, scrub one, wash it, do whatever we had to do, and then put a substitute head in there for her. But if you watch that first season of the show, if you look really closely, Waffles is a blue, very light blue, pale face, and you can kind of see her mouth gets a little dingy as the show goes on. There's just a little bit of a shadow where all that food was touching that, I had to rinse off and use a lot. Went through a lot of shout wipes. But that was terrific. Got to work with Michelle Obama, which was incredible. And again, with that one, we had a big string of celebrities. Lionel Richie. I mean, too many that I won't even remember. And then some time went by, and they brought it back for a second season, but they changed it up a bit, and they changed it to Waffles and Mochi's Restaurant. And then they had some changes in the puppeteers. I stayed on with it, and then I was Waffles' official right-hander. So I was assisting with the rod hands for Sarah Berman, who took over that role. And that one we shot all in a soundstage and pretty quickly. So they changed it to be all in one spot for the most part. They did some exterior shoots, and then we just did those episodes. I think there's maybe 5 or 6, but those are all on Netflix, and it's a really, really fun, offbeat, kind of unusual show, and they always manage to get really great, talented human actors to come join us on that as well. So yeah, I had a lot of fun. I would probably in the future avoid ever putting real food in a puppet's mouth. But because that's usually a thing you don't do, like Cookie Monster. They have these beautifully made fake cookies that crumble and look beautiful. So if it were up to me, I would go that route in the future. But it was still just quite incredible.
You have worked on Rymanton Square.
Rymington Square, yeah, that was an animated series, and I just did a handful of side characters on that. Uh, I'm lucky enough that I kind of have a handful of voices I can do. So I often get work just coming in and doing like a character that appears once, or a couple of side characters. And for that one, that's what I did. But I love doing voiceover because it's like when you're doing puppetry, but to me with half the work. So with puppetry, you're animating and you're voicing and acting. But when it comes down to animation, you don't have to worry about animating anything. You can just sit in a chair if you want, stand in the booth, and just worry about your acting without having to provide the animation. So, but anyway, yeah, that was a great fun time.
And you got to work on Bumble Gnomes.
Yeah, that's a series where an animated series where I'm most of the characters. So there are 3 little, they're kind of alien creatures called the Bumble Gnomes. There's Humble, Grumble, and Stumble. They've got very long, elasticy arms. They're quite goofy, and they only speak in gibberish. So they only say the word yum. So Humble he's got this lower voice. He goes yum 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 like that. Stumble says yum 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 yum. So he's kind of in that register. And then Humble is way up here. So she says yum 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 like that. And then there's a narrator who narrates the stories, and then I'm the narrator too. So if you hear that, you'll hear my actual speaking voice too. But that was a lot of fun to do.
You get to work on Lido TV as a puppet builder.
Yeah, that one. That's one I never actually got to see, but I made a sunflower puppet that talked. That was played by a Fraggle Rock colleague of mine, Ali Eisner, and they kind of spearheaded planning the puppetry and then gave the performance. And then also there was a couple of like little insects, little rod puppets that I made. So yeah, I haven't actually seen it yet, but I'm hoping to one of these days.
And let's see. You got to work on Some of My Best Friends.
I think that's a mistake too. I don't think that was me. I'm gonna really have to look into this IMDb thing.
Alright. You worked on a horror film called Come Play.
I did. That was really really complicated and fun, but a lot of work. It was film starring Gillian Jacobs. She's an actress. I might be mispronouncing her name, from a show called Community, a sitcom, and an actor named John Gallagher Jr., who did a lot of Broadway beforehand. And so it was a big creature puppet made by Jim Henson's Creature Shop in Los Angeles. And my friend, who I've known since the Money Mammals, Russ Walco, he actually helped build it in Los Angeles in the shop. And then they shot it up in and around Toronto. So he was the key performer, the primary performer. I was his second, so I was often doing big arms and big feet. But it was such a big creature that Russ had to wear a harness. And this thing was probably double the size of a human, really tall, quite heavy. I mean, the Creature Shop does everything they can to make it as light as possible, but it still had a lot of weight. And we would perform that puppet. We did some nighttime outside shots in the woods, and it was raining and cold, but it was really creepy and fun. And what happened was they kind of made that puppet into a hybrid CG character. So if you watch the movie, our performance is there. It's moving like a physical being would, but then they went back and did some enhancements with CG to make it look a little creepier, a little mossier, you know. But yeah, that was it was really a unique experience to do a horror film and to work with a creature like that. It was pretty cool.
And you got to work on Miss Persona as a puppet designer.
Yeah, that was a wonderful project. She wanted to do a throwback to more traditional hand puppets like you would see on Mr. Rogers. So some people call them glove puppets, some say they're hand puppets, but they have no moving mouth and your fingers are in the hands and in the head. So I designed, initially, it was a little yellow golden teddy bear that she would carry around and it would sort of come to life. And then later on, that was played by Mike Peterson. And then later on, we added a little dog that was played by Ingrid Hansen, who I also worked on Fraggle Rock with. And we shot, I think, 3 seasons. It got an Emmy nomination for Best Preschool Series, which was incredible because it was just this, you know, we were up against shows like Sesame Street and we were just this smaller kind of production. But Kimberly Persona got to go to the Emmys and it was really exciting. She wrote all the music. We had guests like Fred Penner was on as a guest character. I'm forgetting the name of the actress who played the clown on Big Comfy Couch, but she was on as well. So there was a lot of children's luminaries on the show, and it was very special to work on.
It was Allison Court.
Allison Court, thank you. Yes, and what an incredible performer. Just very, very special.
And you got to work on Fraggle Rock Battle the Rock.
Yes, yep. So we started the first season of that. I auditioned from home because we were in the middle of the COVID lockdown. So I because I had worked with Henson before. I must have been on a list or something somewhere, but I got an email asking if I was interested in submitting an audition, and I'm like, of course. So they would email out sides, which are little chunks of the script that I would then film from home and then upload to the internet and submit. And then we did parts of songs. We would learn choreography just to make sure that like we could handle all of the amazing things that happened on the show. Uh, so yeah, I got that gig. I was we did auditions for characters again from home. So we would do voice recordings, and then I was assigned the character of Wrench Doozer, who Dave Goles originally played. I got to do a Zoom call with him, and he gave his blessing. He said, "Do whatever you want." He should, because he never had a lot. He had one episode, I think, main episode on Fraggle Rock, and then lots of little bits here and there. But he was very kind, very generous. And then on that show too, I'm John Tartaglia's kind of first assist for Gobo. And because Johnny has so many characters he plays, I will often double for him. So if he's doing Berry Blueberry, I'll do Gobo. I've filled in on his trash heap rodent for him when he had something else going on. Yes, that's very special. And you always, when you're doubling, you really want to pay attention to how that person puppeteers, because I think everyone has their own style that's a little distinctive. Jerry Nelson had a little mouth movement and would drop syllables. Jim Henson had a with like Guy Smiley, very erratic, very big performance. So whenever I would fill in for Johnny as whatever character he couldn't do, I would really try to match his style to the best of my ability. And then I got to be Jamdalin, which is, in my mind, a relative of Cantus from the original series. So he leads a little band and he gets to appear in a handful of episodes, including our Night of the Light special, which is maybe my favorite thing we got to do. And he's a really big Fraggle. He always has his mandolin either attached to his chest, or if he's not playing it, it'll be on his back. Very tall body. He has a 6 or 8 foot tail that follows behind, live hands, huge hair. And I'm a puppeteer with very short arms, so I had to wear my tall boots, and I really had to stretch and try to keep my head out of the shot as best I could. But I felt really lucky to get to do that because it kind of felt like a direct line to Jim Henson and getting to continue the spirit of Cantus, but in a new way. And then Daveed Diggs, who is enormous talent from Broadway, was the speaking voice. So I would do all the dialogue live on set, and then afterwards he would come in and put his voice over mine. And the songs he would pre-record so I could practice those at home and really get the lip sync nailed. So yeah, that was great. And then in the second season, I got to be a character that I really loved named Wrigley, who's spoiler alert if you've not watched the second season, but he's a lost Fraggle, they call them. So he's kind of a doppelganger for Wembley. So I really got to play that up, and it was a lot of fun. Yeah, and everyone watched the show. And also there is going to be a live Fraggle Rock tour that's going to hit the road, and it will be playing all over North America. And if it's not playing near you, call your venue and suggest it, because I know they're still taking booking dates, I believe. But so keep an eye out for that too.
Was Fraggle Rock Live coming to Cornerbrook?
You know what? I don't know, but they do have a website, and all of the tour dates they booked are right there on the website, so you can go through and see where it's going to be playing. But I know they're going to be in the U.S., they're going to be in Canada, all over the place. So definitely take a look and see. And they have been showing the new costumes off on Instagram and Facebook quite a bit, and they are incredible. They look nearly identical to the puppets, and they have beautiful moving mouths. And I've been told that the show is quite incredible. So definitely check that out if you can.
And you got to work on several Disneyland attractions.
Yeah, yeah, I did. I did a filmed piece as the Magic Mirror from Snow White that went into a Halloween attraction for one season. But my main gig was doing it became Disney Junior, but at the time it was Playhouse Disney Live on Stage. And it featured Bear in the Big Blue House and then a bunch of different rotating Disney series, but as puppets in between. I did that for almost 3.5 years. And that really built up my stamina doing 6 to 8 shows a day, 5 times a week. And for the most part, it's the same show. So you really can fine tune your acting choices. And then you can start to explore ways to express the puppet through movement in different ways because the dialogue doesn't change. That was a fun challenge. A lot of the puppets were made by a company called Animax, and they were beautiful puppets, but really big because they had to be seen from quite a distance. And oftentimes, because of the size, they were very heavy. So that really built up my stamina. The Bear and the Big Blue House puppets were made by the Jim Henson Company, and then toward the end, Puppet Heap was sort of taking over those builds. But those puppets were a dream. I was never in Bear, but all of the other characters I did, and they were lightweight. They moved beautifully, and a big part of that is because they were designed to be puppets, whereas a lot of like Winnie the Pooh was never meant to be a puppet. It's designed to be an animated character with a little mouth and stubby little arms. So those were more of a challenge, but I love doing it. And then I did a show that is kind of forgotten, but it was called The Ugly Bug Ball. And it played in a Bug's Land at California Adventure, which is now completely gone. But there was one puppet named Barry. He was a big spider who was a one-man band. So each of his legs was playing a different instrument. And so they were controlled by foot pedals and rods. And then my hand was in his mouth. So he would be the band, the orchestra. And then Flick and Ada from A Bug's Life, the two ants, were in the show. And then there was a human animal hybrid woman. I forget her name, but she kind of hosted it. But there are some clips on YouTube of that, but it's not something that people remember much. And now it's all gone because they changed California Adventure so much. But I had a blast doing that show. It was one of my favorite things because I was the only puppeteer, and I would just pop in, do the show for 20 minutes, pop out, and I would just walk around the theme park and enjoy, the fresh air and the sunshine. So I had a lot of fun doing that, and it built up the stamina, which is good.
And you got to work on V Corporation.
I did. They were the original producers of Sesame Street Live. So V is named for Vincent Egan. He was the man who started the company, and he met Jim Henson and made a deal with him to start doing these live arena tours. And I think it began somewhere around 1980. But my first industry job out of college was working in the workshop. It was called These Costumes and Creatures. And that's where we made all of the big walk around Muppets for Sesame Street Live. They were originally made by the Jim Henson Company, but they were in their heyday and too busy. So V Corporation took over that work. So I got to work on Big Birds. I got to feather many Big Birds, just going around and around the hoops. And I did some finishing work, just meaning like the fur covers and that kind of thing on the walkarounds. And then we had some puppets too. And eventually we did Bear in the Big Blue House live, and I got to build some puppets for that. So I made a bunch of Pips and Pops. They were the otters. And I got to make Tutter a couple times, all from the Henson patterns that they gave us. So that was really fun. I really liked that. But yeah, so V Corporation was sold to Cirque du Soleil, and now Cirque du Soleil is closing down, so V Corp doesn't really exist anymore. But the Sesame tours are still out there, just made produced by a different company. But yeah, that was a great experience. I learned how to be. I learned a lot of building skills, and that was the first time I was interacting with professional materials. So it's the first time I used barge contact cement and Antron fleece, the good stuff back in the day, and uh, all the fancy furs and things. So that was fun.
And how many puppets do you have?
Me personally, I I don't have a lot of my own puppets. When I build, it's usually for other shows and other people. I also build for Chuck E. Cheese's. I make their puppets. So most of my time is spent making puppets that go off into the world. I have a couple here that I use as audition puppets, um, but I don't really have that many. I do have some like puppets that are kind of antique or collectible. So there's back in the day there was a show called The Howdy Doody Show, and he was a marionette. And there was a competing show called Rudy Kazootie back in the 50s. And look it up on YouTube. It's called the Rudy Kazootie Club. It's really fun. And those puppets were made by a man named Paul Ashley. And I have Rudy Kazootie. I think there were four in all. I have two of them. So I have some like, collectible puppets that are more antique, but not a lot of my own that I perform with.
All right. You got to work on the Chuck E. Cheese ads.
Yeah, I that's another thing I love because I grew up. Uh, I was a kid who was obsessed with Chuck E. Cheese. There was a restaurant. There were two at the time. One was called Chuck E. Cheese, and they had a competitor named Showbiz Pizza. They were both similar. They had video games, animatronics. Um, and then what happened was they kind of combined into one company and became just Chuck E. Cheese. But I loved it. I was so into animatronics as a kid, like the Country Bear Jamboree at Disney. So when they started phasing out their animatronics, they decided that they were going to really utilize puppets in the stores on the screens. So I made all the characters: Chucky, Helen, Munch, Pasquale, uh, a bunch of them, many times because the puppets wear out. So I probably made Chuck E. Cheese 6 or 7 times, Helen at least three. And then we would shoot those music videos in Dallas, Texas, a few times a year. So that was a lot of fun to do. They're at a point now where they have such a library of content that they're kind of just reusing a lot, and they're going back to their costume characters a bit. So there's not as much puppetry these days, but it is still it makes me very happy that I get to participate in that.
And where are you calling from?
Me right now, I am calling from my Christmas themed living room, and I'm in Toronto right now.
I got to meet my previous guest, Mike Peterson.
Oh, terrific! Mike is wonderful, very talented. Um, yeah, really nice guy. Oh, I'm glad you got to meet him. That's wonderful.
And you still have the Fraggle puppets.
I no, I don't have all those Fraggle puppets from. You mean from the series? They all go into storage. I think most of them are probably back in Los Angeles now. They may have left some in Calgary because they store the set in Calgary. So yeah, but those all get, and then they have to be refurbished between seasons, and they get a lot of hard use. So yeah, all of those things belong to the Henson Company.
And could you do the voice of pigs?
Pigs the Bank, yeah, that was me. He had a kind of a gruff Piggy kind of threw his, because he had that big snout, right? So I always think like, well, how would he sound? And he's got this big snout. So I kind of talked right through his snout and gave him kind of a bit of a kind of a growly voice, but still friendly. But yeah, Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Hey, pigs.
Hi, how you doing? Are you saving your money?
Yes.
Good, good, good.
It's been a long time since I've done that.
Pigs, I have a DVD copy of you.
You have a DVD copy of me? Wow, that's me right there. Whoa, I'm Pigs the Bank. That's me. And those are my friends. Look, it's Joe the Monkey right up there on top. That's crazy.
And
Oh,
there's
it's very cool that you have that.
Claire. There's
Claire, that's right. Clara Camel.
and Seth.
Marmoset, I think her name is. Yep. Oh wow, that's great. Where did you find that online, or where did you find it?
I ordered this on Amazon.
Oh, wonderful. Oh, good. Oh, that's great. Yeah, I always hope that maybe someday those characters will come back because it was so much fun.
And I do have a picture of you with
Oh, let's see. Oh, I can't quite. Man, there it is. Oh, yep. That's there we are. And in that group, you'll see Russ Walco back there, who's my friend and colleague, and he played a couple of characters. There was a vulture and some kind of alien. Yeah, a bunch of wonderful people. Carla Rudy is in there. My friend Ann Clark, who I haven't seen in a long time. Oh, that's a great memory. I love that.
I know. And what about Animal Wow?
Animal Wow, I just went in to be a photo double. Christine Papalexis, a wonderful puppeteer from LA, I believe she made those and then was like the key puppeteer with Kevin Carlson. But when they're doing photo stills, sometimes they'll make an armature wired poser puppet that they can just pose. In this case, I don't think they had the budget to do that. And puppeteers who are working hard all day don't really want to waste their energy holding a puppet still to take some pictures. So I was very young, was early in my career, but Ann Clark, my Disney colleague, and I were there, and we would just pop in and do photographs holding the puppets up. So yeah, it's nice that we got a little credit for that, but we didn't really do that much. But if you ever see a still photo from that, that's probably me and my friend Ann Clark.
All right. Could you do the voice of French Doozer?
Sure, yeah, Reg Doozer. He kind of talks up here. He's kind of like Pigs the Bank, but Pigs is more through the nose. And Reg Doozer is more, he's a little higher because he's a little fraggle who likes to work hard and he has his own insecurities and he kind of worries and frets, but he does his best.
So that's kind of Wrench. He's always fun. He and his buddy, who's played by Ali Eisner, they're just kind of always off to the side of a scene having their own little drama or funny thing going on. It's always a pleasure to do that. But
Yeah, this is Wrench. I just talk here. It's fun being a doozer. I enjoy it, and it's fun talking to you.
so that's kind of him.
All right. Andy, thanks so much for your time.
Of course, my pleasure. Always happy to talk about puppets.
You have a puppet?
Not nearby. No, unfortunately. I see you've got some puppets back there, though. Did you make those yourself? Yeah, that's a great puppet.
I forgot to tell you. What was it like working on Am I Understanding?
Oh, that was terrific. Those puppets were made by Terry Angus, who is known for being on the original Fraggle Rock. And it was it was a series for kids to help them understand their own feelings and emotions. So I played a chicken who was kind of dealing with anxiety, which is something a lot of people deal with. And there was a dog that was played by Frank Meshkalite. I forget his name. And then, oh, there was a little bunny that was added named Poppy, and she was played by Karen Valou, who worked on many great shows like Mr. Dress Up and many others. So it was really fun meeting those guys and working with them. And Terry Angus, he came to set a couple times too, and he played a character in that. So it was a joy to get to meet him.
Well, I did meet Terry Angus in Halifax.
Wonderful. Oh, good. He is very talented, and his building work is some of the best. Really incredible.
And he was my previous guest.
Oh, wonderful. Well, I'll have to go back in and watch that one. I'll catch up.
Alright, so is there anything else you'd like to say?
I'm so glad you invited me. It's been fun chatting. And watch, if any of you listening or watching are Fraggle fans, we really hope that we get to do more Fraggle Rock, Back to the Rock someday. And so the more people watch it, the better the chances are. So Apple TV, watch Fraggle Rock. There's a great holiday-themed episode, Night of the Lights. You can start there if you want. And also, they just put out the first season on DVD and Blu-ray. So if you don't have Apple TV, you can go out and get those DVDs, and then you'll have it forever and watch it. But anything that supports the show is great. So hopefully we can do more someday. So yeah, and it's been fun talking to you, and thanks for inviting me.
Nice. Let me know if you see Fraggle Rock live.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And check out the website, because then you can see all the cities and tour dates. And I know they will be in Canada this winter, so you can check out and see if it'll be anywhere near you.
I will see you in Toronto.
All right, sounds good.
At the airport.
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. If we ever cross paths, that would definitely be fun.
Okay. Stay tuned for more guests coming up. Until next time, peace.